All right, I think it's recording right now. Hello, everyone. Greetings from Hong Kong. My name is Henry, and I'm a lecturer at the Department of Communication Studies in Hong Kong Baptist University. So it is my pleasure to have my other very capable researcher, Jiaming, here.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jiaming. I'm first-year PhD student from Hong Kong Baptist University, and I'm very glad to see you guys here.
That's great. So our presentation topic is political participation, perceived stress, and academic performance of university students in Hong Kong under the Anti-Extradition Law Amendment Bill movement. So here come to our research background. So I think all of you would agree, the academic year of 2019 to 2020 was unprecedentedly difficult. We have prolonged a social movement called the Anti-Extradition Law Amendment Bill movement. So basically this movement was originated from a murder case in Taiwan where a Hong Kong 90-year-old man killed his pregnant wife. So the Hong Kong government subsequently proposed the amendment of the ordinance to extradite criminal suspects to territories where Hong Kong does not currently have any extradition agreement, including China and Taiwan. However, this proposal received mass rejection from the public because we, Hong Kong people, afraid that this bill would eventually make all of us vulnerable to Chinese jurisdiction. Because of this, the radical protesters, they employ various tactics to fight for their political demands, as you can see from these pictures. So basically, they had a lot of violence tactics, like the street protests, like the vandalism, like the petrol bombs, even the siege of the university. So under such unfavorable social political context, all the face-to-face classes and campus activity have to be shut down. And it is evident in the literature that students faced with uncertainty and personal risks have lower motivation to study and poor academic performance. Moreover, life satisfaction diminished with lower positive emotions and high negative emotional reactivity during the social unrest. So here comes to the theoretical framework of this research. So for this research, we adopt the ecological system theory proposed by Brandvenert, where he categorized the students' learning experience into various layers. All right. For instance, the microsystem refers to the immediate environment that the learner routinely interact with. For instance, they interact with their peers, they interact with their teachers, they interact with the classroom, the textbook content. All these factors belong to microsystem. Let me give you a real example. Imagine that a student, he or she is surrounded with folks who are politically active. All right, so according to Brandvenert ecological system theory, these learners somehow will be affected by the political field of his or her peers. All right, so on the other hand, the exosystem refers to the external environment that somehow affect the learning experience of students. All right, so let me give you an example. Because of the social movement, many businesses were forced to shut down, and the economy in Hong Kong was terribly bad. So imagine that a family member, he or she lost the job. All right, so because of this bad economic burdens, students, they have no choice but to take up part-time jobs or to enter to the job market in order to pay for the tuition fee. So again, all this will affect the learning experience in general of the students. All right. So to gain a better understanding of the learning experience of university students in Hong Kong under the social movement, we conduct a research. So there are three main objectives of this research. First, it aims to explore the perceived level of stress of students under the social movement. And number two, it aims to investigate the level of political participation of university students in Hong Kong. And number three, it helps identify the correlations between students' perceived level of stress, political participation, and their academic performance. So regarding the methodology, we conduct an explanatory sequential mixed method research from August to September 2020 at a public liberal arts university in Hong Kong. So specifically, participant of the online survey was recruited through a convenient sampling technique by sending out an email invitation to 160 of my former students. So in total, we received 60 responses. All right. As for the semi-structured in-depth online interviews, basically, we generate a list of potential participants who are the committee member of a society, a student union hall, or the residents, the university senate. And then we send out individually to these folks asking for their participation. So eventually, we conduct 5 semi-structured in-depth interviews, and we analyze their data response to support our quantitative data. So this slide shows the sample characteristics of our online survey participants. So as you can see, after filtering those missing data, we only got 38 responses. So the majority of the respondents, they are, they age about 21 years old to 23 years old. On the other hand, we have a very balanced ratio of gender, right? 50% to 50%, very, very, very equal. Regarding the year of study, most of the participants, they are the year 3 and year 4 students. All right. And as for their self-report GPA, the majority of them are the high achievers. That means they got GPA 3.0 or above. So their academic performance was pretty good. In the following, I will pass the torch to Jiaming, and she will talk about the research findings so as the discussion.
Okay, thanks a lot for Henry sharing. Let's look at the result. As the first research question about the student perceived level of stress, this research find out the aggregate mean score of student perceived stress level is around 29 out of 56, which means students perceived a moderate level of stress. And we also find out the male student had a higher perceived level of stress than female. And the student in year 5, they had the highest level of stress compared with students in other years. Besides, we also find out there are some common stressors reported by our employees. For instance, since the face-to-face classes was suspended, students need to take online courses, and so they worried about having poor academic performance. And also, students concerned about the social and political tension and feel uncertain about their future. As for the second research questions about the students' political participation, in this research we found out students had relatively high political involvement. For instance, from the table we can see over 70% of students went to vote before, and also over 60% of students have signed a petition in the last 6 months. Also, nearly 70% of students have participated in a demonstration before. So, which all represent university students in Hong Kong have participated in various type of political activities. As for the third research question, we ran multiple correlation tests and we found out there is a significant negative relationship between the student self-report GPA and their perceived level of stress. To be more specific, it means students who perceived a higher level of stress and their GPA were lower. And our interviewees provided several possible reasons of these negative correlations. For instance, students may be not used to the online learning mode and they would easily distracted by the social movement. So all those factors makes them feel stressed and have impact on their final academic performance. But in this research, we also find out there is no significant relationship between the students' political participation and their self-report GPA. Also, the students' political participation and their perceived level of stress was not correlated as well. As for the limitation of this research, firstly, since this study was conducted 8 months after the social movement, so the students need to retrieve memories from the past, so it may have some impact on the final result. And as for the second limitations, in this research, we only collected 59 samples, and among them, only 38 of them were valid responses. So the attrition rate is really high. And also, the small sample size was collected only from one university in Hong Kong. So it makes the representativeness is also really low. Okay, in conclusion, in this research, we found students suffered from various stressors, and all those stressors have negative impact on the students' academic performance. And also, under the social unrest, students have relatively high level of political participation, but their political participation was not associated with their academic performance and their perceived level of stress. The future studies could be done in a city-wide scale, and it can involve more diverse students in the future. As for the final implications, through these studies, it could help educators formulate informed interventions and help students improve their learning experience in the future. Okay, so that's all of our presentation today. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us.